Another update for y'all out there watching. Auburn has just clinched the win against Washington. So again, we're talking Pac-12 picture with that loss that the Huskies just took. And you wonder if there's any sort of path that gets them back into the picture for the college football playoff at this point in the game.
No, you do not. You don't wonder. It's done. This is like a rock movie.
Finito.
All football west of the Rockies just got thrown off the map, and The Rock is holding on to the Rockies with like 4 programs in his hand. He's like, trust me, they can still compete.
So I guess we're just not gonna go. We're just gonna go to bed early every weekend. No Pac-12 after dark.
We have to at some point acknowledge the fact that Stanford looked a little rusty coming into it, which is fine. But Washington was the great hope. They didn't look particularly good. And Bryce Love, who's getting all the Heisman love, rightfully so. I think he's a spectacular player. Wasn't all that spectacular?
No, that's totally fair. But I think, again, Washington, and again, early on in the season, you got to appreciate the fact that offenses are going to try to find their groove. It's going to take a couple weeks to get going, specifically with an explosive offense like Washington. Now, here, Auburn clearly showed athleticism early on, and I think both of us were saying just clearly outmatched the Huskies.
Which was sort of a theme we saw from some of the SEC teams. They just looked bigger, better, and stronger. I was a little surprised to see Washington look a little undersized on the corners especially. They looked like they weren't ready to handle the physical battle to get the ball. Great job here on the highlight. You're seeing high point in the football. That's something that felt like Auburn was able to do at will. Stidham had a good game.
Yeah, you mentioning Stidham was exactly what I was getting ready to touch on, because the brother couldn't hit the broadside of a barn last season, and I like the fact that he turned it around in this one. Right, you saw an early dime there that was in the perfect spot. Everybody likes to clown on goal line fades. My man's there, nailed the goal line fade, and that's a textbook example of it. He might have turned some things around for himself.
The difficulty here is, in my mind, an undefeated Pac-12 champion that's named Washington has a path to the playoff. A one-loss Pac-12 champion named Washington with that loss to Auburn, they're going to have to hope a couple of things. They're going to have to hope at this point that Auburn goes on to win the SEC. I mean, that's about the only way they can find it. And even when they find it that way, I think they're going to need the rest of the national landscape to actually take 2 losses for them to get
You're going to have to get a lot of help elsewhere. So let's kind of go through that game in its entirety. You'll see here, again, number 6 Washington in Atlanta, and I think a lot of people played that up as one of the factors that's going to have the Huskies struggle in this one. As you sort of see here, this was the moment where Auburn goes up.
Physicality, man.
Yeah,
and
that's what it boils down to, right? Just the stronger presence up front.
Point of attack. He leaned in and he made it
stronger
his destiny.
Inside zone to the crib for 6. That, again, it's just about imposing your will, and that's exactly what Gus Malzahn and them did against the Huskies. So they go up 21-16 there. Later on in the fourth, I believe Jared Sinnen and them continue, and this is like one of those last-ditch efforts for Jake Browning and
I got to feel like Jake Browning particularly is going to take some of the blame on this play, on this game, on his shoulders. There was an interception early on in this game that you just expect better from Jake Browning.
Yeah, I think a lot of the conversation for Jake was, he takes care of the ball. He doesn't make silly decisions. He keeps everything under control for the Huskies and allows their playmakers to actually make the plays. He's not a playmaker. He allows everybody else to do so, and that's something he didn't put him in a position to do all game.
And realistically, the way that they were going to beat Auburn was for Jake Browning to play lights out. And it's unfortunate because I think Washington's going to look back at this game in some ways and say it's about the things we didn't do. Not taking anything away from Auburn, who, by the way, I think we are forgetting was a very good football team last year. And as much as we're having a conversation now about what the loss means for Washington, there's a fair conversation about what the win means for Auburn, because Auburn is, with the matchup against Georgia and a matchup against Alabama.
Absolutely.
Auburn is one of the few teams in the country that absolutely controls their own destiny. They can win the national championship by winning football games, and this was the first step in that.
Ain't no doubt about it. And they find themselves in a good spot to start the year, right? That number 9 slot outside of the top 4, just inside that top 10, again, puts a lot of pressure on you in the sense that you control your own destiny with all of this. Like, it's just a matter of making sure you win the games that you need to, upset the opponents that you can, and play to your schedule to the best of your ability.